On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, we have a customer. Writer and Video Archives Cinema Club regular Matthew David Wilder joins Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary as they rip apart the house in George P. Cosmatos of Unknown Origin. A hardworking businessman finally finished his townhome renovations, only to find out that he's not the only one who moved in. What starts as a simple game of cat and mouse turns into deadly obsession. Quentin, Roger, and Matthew discuss how their opinions on the film have changed over the years, the connections to other movies like Shock to the System and American Psycho, and the theories on just who the invader truly is. Second on today's billing, we've got a third world hitman gone berserk. Quentin, Roger, and Matthew pull the apartheid-exploitation Funeral for an Assassin off the shelves. Starring Vic Morrow, the guys discuss how they discovered this film from trailers on another tape, the muscularity of the directing, and which side this movie is really on. And to bring it all together, we've got a Canucksploitation sex comedy that will have you begging for special treatment. In one night only, a group of sorority girls decide to hijack a pimp's party for the hockey team to make some dough. The catch? The coach will only pay up if he gets his special treatment. What fantasy could be worth $50,000? I'll let you figure it out. I'm Gala Avary, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary.
Okay, thank you, Gala. Kill the Bakalov. Hello, everybody. This is Quentin Tarantino.
And Roger Avary.
And we are here for another exciting episode, hopefully, of the Video Archives podcast. And we are joined today by a customer.
A very special guest.
This is writer-director Matthew David Wilder.
Hello, everyone.
He is a regular at the Vista comedy matinee shows and our midnight shows, and especially Video Archives Cinema Club. So we're going to get to the films that the three of us were going to talk about. And this was an interesting collection of three movies. I think all three of them together add up to one movie, to some degree or another. But we'll start off with our first title, which is a Warner home video title from Canada, Roger's beloved country.
Yeah, I actually wore my DGC cap today.
All right, good deal.
To honor my Directors Guild of Canada here.
It is the 80s horror film of unknown origin.
It's here. In this house. Now, it wants them. If it doesn't scare you to death, it will find another way of unknown origin. Rated R. Opens Wednesday, November 23rd at a theater near you.
Directed by George Pan Cosmatos, credited here as George P. Cosmatos, and me and Roger are big fans. And I'm actually happy that finally a George Pan Cosmatos film has finally made the show. We've watched a couple that we thought might make the show. We watched Escape to Athena, which we really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then we watched The Beloved. Very good axe murder at the end, all right, axe fight at the end. But for some reason, we didn't do it. So now we are officially doing Unknown Origin. I'll read the back of the box. Has a big tagline here. If it can't scare them to death, it will find another way. What the fuck does that mean? Okay, so
it'll just chew them to death. Is what that means.
Yes, deeping into it. Okay. Somewhere in Manhattan's fashionable Upper East Side, there lurks a dangerous and terrifying intruder of unknown origin. Based upon the fright-filled novel The Visitor by Chauncey G. Parker III, of unknown origin is a suspense chiller which not only shocks, but questions if a man is truly the master of his own destiny. Peter Weller, Shoot the Moon, stars as Bart Hughes, an ambitious young executive who, while soaring to the top of the corporate world, suddenly finds himself the unwitting target of a vicious, unpredictable opponent in a battle for survival, which he must win. The deadly game begins when Bart's beautiful wife, Playmate of the Year Shannon Tweed, leaves with their young son for a 2-week vacation. Alone in his elegantly remodeled brownstone, Bart immediately begins to sense that a strange transformation is taking place inside his home. An ominous feeling that he is being watched and stalked by some devilish, unknown predator grows day by day. The nights for Bart in the big, empty house become dreaded as the true identity of his intruder becomes apparent and terrifying. Finally, the tension is too great, and Bart, obsessed with total victory, sets out to destroy his sinister opponent once and for all. The battle rages, each warrior pitting all their endurance and cunning in a gruesome fight to the death. Of Unknown Origin is a provocative and shocking suspense thriller which probes and explores man's primal instinct to survival in his modern environment. My history with Of Unknown Origin is I might have saw it anyway because I pretty much saw all the new horror films that came out, but it really got on my radar when I read Kevin Thomas's review. And Kevin Thomas really highlighted it and made a big point that, oh, this is the movie, because, he only knew George Cosmatos from the Cassandra Crossing and Escape from Athena. And while actually I like both of those movies, it does sort of type the guy. Mm-hmm. And he made a big point of like, oh, no, this is George Cosmatos exploding. This is this shows a whole different director. And then, true enough, it probably does.
Yeah.
And so about either 1 week after its first engagement, after 1 week or maybe a second week, I saw it. It was at the World Theater, which was the exploitation house on Hollywood Boulevard. Now, I have a huge rat phobia. It's like I'm a terrible rat phobia. I am literally jumping and yelping through this whole film, to the degree that the other people are looking at,
Yelping.
No, I'm just like Paul Lynn. All right?
Squealing like Paul Lynn.
Jim J. Bullock, all right, through the whole fucking movie. I go, wow, that was really, really something. And then we became very insistent that, this is like a movie that people don't know about. It kind of came and went. People would probably expect it to be a crappy little horror movie. And I'm like, no, it's really a good black comedy. It's really, really funny. It's really, really good. I don't think I've watched it from beginning to end, but I've watched the first part of it a couple of times, I think, since then. And it was always really, really impressive. So I thought, hey, well, this will be a good one. And Roger's been pushing it for us to watch it. Mm-hmm. So we watched it. And the first part, the first act, I would even say the whole first half, is just as good as I remember it being. It's terrific. I mean, really, 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 really terrific. Then I started liking it less and less and less in the second half, which is happening to me a lot.
Started wearing out its welcome.
When you don't know what it's going to be about and you think it's just this week's horror film, you're going to think this is really fucking terrific because it's completely off the beaten track of what you would expect. Even in the description, they don't say that that this intruder creature is just a rat. It's just a rat that's in the guy's house. All right. It sounds like almost like an alien creature. And that's what the trailer made it sound. And even the poster and everything kind of makes it look, or it's some werewolfy alien kind of thing. No, it's just a guy has got a fucking rat in the house. And that's what's good about it. It's fantastic if you're not expecting a lot. But I was actually now expecting a little gem, a classic. And it falls far short of that to me in the second half. But that's my take on it, guys. I'm curious to
All right, let me ask you this, because this is the main takeaway for me from the movie. You said in the first half at some point you likened it to Polanski and said that Cosmatos' sense of humor was more coherent.
Yeah, I said it was like
than Polanski.
There were definitely moments in the first 20 minutes that seemed like Polanski with a sense of humor.
I don't think Cosmatos would ever make K.
I love K. I have pillows of K. I have pillows of K in my house.
I'm just saying as far as someone who's
I don't know.
Coherent.
From the Beloved to K, you can get there.
Well, you could, except instead you get to Rambo and then Tombstone and Cobra.
Well, that's where he got to, but where he started is, the Beloved is not too different from K.
Let me ask you this, because here's my question with the movie. The thing that I thought was sort of a missed opportunity is you've got scenes of Peter Weller is a yuppie in what's supposed to be Manhattan. I guess is it Toronto? It's like
it's Manhattan. It's meant to play.
It is Toronto, okay, but they're playing it for Manhattan. And by the way, I think that it works. Normally, I think that's lazy when they do that in Canadian movies. I like it to I want it to be, but in this case, they use it like perfect. They use it for satire.
Well, in brief, the story of the movie is it's about a guy who's a sort of a yuppie, kind of an exec. He's dealing with the rat race by day, and then he deals with the rat by night.
Yeah.
He's got a literal rat in his house who, for some reason, has taken it upon himself to just be the white whale to this guy's Ahab. And there's actually a literal use of the book Moby Dick in the movie. But so you have these two worlds at odds, right? Now, you guys probably remember this movie better than I do. I remember liking it at the time. It's a 1990 movie called A Shock to the System.
Right.
Yeah, I like that,
with Michael Caine.
Yeah, I actually read the book that was based on, too.
The business world, murder, back and forth we go. I felt like in Cosmatos' movie, the office world and the shenanigans in the office and the cutthroating and so on, and then rat versus man, somehow those should have been syncopated in a better way, that they comment on each other or they somehow click with each other in some clever way. And I felt like the office stuff was just kind of like office stuff. It didn't build to a satirical point or...
I actually thought the office stuff worked in the first half, but then it started being a real drag on the second half. I was like, okay, enough of his career imploding. Just bring the rat back.
To me, the comparison actually was like a proto-American Psycho. Like, you have a guy who's basically kind of disintegrating in his work life, and when his wife...
That's actually not too different from Shock to the System, though, if you think about it.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Well, they're all commenting on the same thing, which is this existentialism of the white day trader type guy.
And you have to remember, at the time, them doing a satirical look at a yuppie is like somebody doing a satirical look at a millennial right now on a college campus. Because it's what people are thinking about. It's the cliche of the day.
And Cosmatos is like in full, Adrian Lyne mode or something.
Yeah. No, he absolutely is in Adrian Lyne mode.
He's maximizing his surely limited Canadian, budget that's, 1/3 government money and blah, blah, blah. He's maximizing all of that by making the most out of everything. This guy really...
He's a good director.
It's why he ends up doing Rambo and going to Hollywood and everything, is they see him, they're like, wow, this guy's a shooter. This guy knows how to turn nothing into something. And to me, what he turned those offices into was like a slowly constricting prison. The lenses kept getting longer and tighter. The buildings in the background kept kind of filling up the windows until it was just nothing but more windows. And as he's kind of slipping away, and there's nothing wrong with his work life. It's actually not American Psycho at all. There's even Maury Chaykin. Was it Maury Chaykin?
Yeah.
Maury Chaykin even plays one of those American Psycho. Like, there's an American Psycho, a friend of American Psycho, who's kind of the chubby guy. That's who Maury Chaykin.
Also the Maury Chaykin role in Canadian movies.
But then his boss,
Lawrence Dane,
the great Canadian actor,
Sir Lawrence Dane.
Yeah,
he's not Sir, but I'm joking.
He's in everything.
If anyone would be knighted, all right, for Canadian films, it would be Lawrence Dane.
Well, I would love to nominate Lawrence Dane for the Order of Canada, which is the closest you can get. What I found remarkable about his character, his boss, is how nice he is to him.
Yeah, everything is pressure.
Peter Weller becomes a crackhead, and then he gives him 2 more weeks on his assignment for free.
That might just be a Canadian thing to do that to crackheads. But
no, we're watching it, and it's all set up to give the Kramer versus Kramer speech of, look, I'm sorry, Bill, but you're fired. All right, it's all set up,
and it never happens.
Okay, and not only is it set up, it is so juicily deserved. He's actually kind of an idiot for not throwing this guy out on his ass, because the only explanation he can have is that he's a crack addict.
Oh my God. One day he goes to work in a gray hoodie and stubble, and you just go, couldn't you have shaved?
Well, in those days, it began with a loose tie, and some random guy on the escalator points at him and says, hey, your tie. And so there's kind of this idea that the world should be stressful, and yet there's no stress in that world.
Right.
Yeah, well, I also started thinking more about it as the time went on. It's not like he's stressed at work. He's the killer. He's the guy, all right? Yeah. He's the man.
Yeah, he's
a legend in his own time. Everyone wants to be him. He's got the best trophy wife in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, she came from the hinterlands.
Absolutely. All right. He's living large. All right. And then it even shows about how the fact that he's like meticulous anal little fuck. All right. The idea that like he redesigned the brownstone himself, like wood panel by wood panel, brick by brick.
I put these floors in myself.
If there's if there's some weird glass mat, he picked that glass himself. I mean, piece of furniture, so it's all done. Oh, I'm not going to let some fucking exterminators come in here and rip out a cabinet. Fuck that shit. But we don't still know where you're coming from, Roger. What did you think of it?
Well, you know how much I love this movie. Actually, I may have actually seen this movie. No, because I remember you actually were the one telling me about the Thomas review.
Yeah.
And,
really?
And you actually got me to watch it on video. That was how I saw the movie.
But I think you had seen the Cassandra Crossing, hadn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'd seen the Cassandra Crossing, but and so when I finally saw this, my introduction was on tape and everything. And for me, this was a total Roger movie because it's contained. You're in this house, basically. You've got all these wacky characters like...
But we talked about it. There's one scene that's absolutely a Roger scene.
That guy, the Louis Delgrand is the actor's name.
Oh, he's great, yeah.
Okay, this guy who plays Cleet, the super of the building. Mm-hmm. And he's like he's the first guy who, Peter Weller, who's kind of anal and uptight already. He gets to him and he starts just feeding him with stuff in his brain. And in a Roger moment, like you said, is a scene that I could have written.
Yeah.
It's exactly the kind of scene that I love, where the guy's just like, no, a rat. You don't want a rat it'll eat through your wires. A rat will eat through concrete. A rat will eat through you. A rat will go right through you. You don't want to get an exterminator. They'll tear up the house. And well, I've never let anything touch. No machine has ever touched my floors. Well, an exterminator will rip that place apart.
Okay, yeah. You see all that kitchen cabinet? Okay, they'll rip that shit right out. Yeah, first thing.
And the funny thing is, that's what eventually happens. He has to become the exterminator because he has to do everything in his house.
Okay,
and this movie,
I got to say though, some of that dialogue that the super has, I've had in my head ever since I saw the fucking movie, years ago. Like, look, you got to look at it like this. Maybe you're spending 20% of your time thinking about him. He's spending 100% of his time thinking about you. He's a rat. What the fuck else has he got to do?
Nothing else to do. And when his wife leaves, the rat, who's a female rat, she enters. And it's that the wife left. That's all it is.
Let me ask you guys a question. One thing that bugged me in this was I felt like some producer had said to Cosmatos and the writer, yeah, he's chasing the rat. The rat's doing crazy shit. But you think maybe Peter Weller, it's all in his head and he's losing his marbles. And someone said, no, it's got to be an actual rat. We got to see the rat. We got to see the rat's teeth. We got, and it closed out that thing where for a while you might think he's kind of like Harry Call in the conversation. And he's ripping the boards and trying to find the bug and he's going nuts. I felt like you never got to feel that in this movie, and I kind of wanted to wonder if it was insanity or real.
On one hand, that's almost become its own cliche, to go that way. I mean, you can
to have the possible madness.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but the thing, I mean, I like the reading. I really, really, really enjoy the reading of Rosemary's Baby, that she's just going through postpartum depression.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing supernatural that happens in the movie up until at the very end. And even that is ambiguous, and that she literally could be fucking losing it. She literally could be fucking losing it. And Ralph Bellamy could be 100% right. And the only thing that says it's not is when they go, look at his eyes. Well, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
And he's going to take over the world with eyes like a fucking coyote? Well, no. What does that mean? Yeah, exactly. We read so much into that. So here's my thing. I thought they made it so literal that I couldn't quite go there. I did think he was losing it, and I did think he's making it a bigger deal than it is. And I do think as the movie goes on, that the rat has human qualities that I do think that maybe he is endowing the rat with. That it's less the rat is able to do a lot of these things, that he's endowing the rat with some of these ideas. All right. And it's not clear, but it's like, I think it's there a little bit. But I got to say, I think this is all tied to the wife.
Yeah, it has to be because he's upset when she's away.
Their marriage, without demonstrating anything wrong, there seems like there's a shamness about the marriage to some degree or another. Maybe, it's just like, 6 years in, the trophy wife isn't so special anymore.
Can I bring up a hypothesis?
Yeah, please.
That just occurred to me? The secretary. The secretary, which is trying to hold it together for him at work. Is it possible that there was something there, that there's more there than is currently in the film?
I think you can definitely read that, but I think I read it more for what I think they're presenting it as, even though it could easily be read that, is she wants that to happen. She's the one who understands him. Because he's a business dude. So they're the one that finish each other's sentences. it's her that he's really sharing his life with.
But it would also be her that he kind of needs to get rid of, metaphorically, through, through the rat.
Well, you make the leave us alone line work really well in a way that I didn't think it did at the moment.
And that only just occurred to me now, but like, you know, the fact that the rat really only goes crazy on him when he takes the babies and drops them down the drain in that horrific scene. And also I have to say, the fact that it was a rat brought me one of my most joyful moments was when Quentin actually yelped as if he was in the movie theater back when, exactly. And I was sitting near him and like how a person's supposed to react in a movie. You squeal. Ah!
Well, the thing is, it's so kind of perfect that he has this mono-rodent battle with the rat, and then he eventually finally vanquishes it. And then the next moment, I mean, like
moments later,
like 2 beats later, the car pulls up and the wife.
No, man. And that's the Adrian Lyne ending of the 80s.
Yeah.
The nuclear family must.
Yeah, crane back. But
I think, well, their joke is pretty good, all right? Because we know how the house is demolished, and she's going, what the fuck? Honey, I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
All right. But no. This happened. There was a rat in the house. The rat wasn't this smart. It wasn't this big. It did not do all this damage. He's such a weirdo. He turned it into this gigantic thing of an invasion of the house.
He went Roger on it.
Yeah, he went Roger on it. And there is a definite connection to Fatal Attraction going on here, because the first 20 minutes, the intruder seems like it could be about an interloper girl.
Yeah.
That comes in while the wife's away and fucks up his life, which is sort of what the rat is.
And Louis Dale Grand, the super, in fact, basically says that. Oh, well, if it's a man rat, if it's a boy rat.
No, but you don't want a woman.
You don't want a woman rat.
Oh, females are vicious.
Yeah, they're vicious. They go at you. They
go for your soft stuff.
Yeah.
Now,
your eyes, your balls.
you point out one really insane thing, which is there's a moment where he leaves a check for like the exterminator, I think it is.
Yeah.
Check for the exterminator, and then he comes home and like the little glass, the pheasant under glass thing that he has over
it in the record turntable,
and the rat's eating the check to bits.
He seems to figure out the one thing a rat wouldn't be able to do. All right. And that is put the check for the exterminator on the turntable of your plastic glass top thing. Well, that would be a thing that a rat probably can't get through, all right? And the glass wasn't eaten through.
But, it could still be psychological, because we never see the rat chew that up, and all evidence would prove that the rat shouldn't be able to do that.
But we do see nibbles. We see nibbles on the check, like tooth marks.
I think that's ridiculous if the rat did that, but I think the movie is honestly not being a reliable narrator at that point, but for purposeful reasons. That could just be him.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. No, obviously you call the Terminator you call the Arnold Schwarzenegger of rat killers, and he's got the money, pay him whatever, pay him triple his price, just kill this fucking thing. But he doesn't want that to happen. He needs
to do it with his
He needs to do it himself.
He also has that model of the house downstairs, which is where he ultimately kills the rat, is in the model of the house. I mean, almost Hereditary style.
It's Hereditary, like,
where you've got this model which basically represents the perfection of his life that's basically in the basement. And everything's perfect. And where do you go from there?
He has to care about this intruder to his family and intruder to his house. And he has to vanquish it before they get home, because he's got to be the protector. And now, finally, is something more important than his fucking job.
If he doesn't kill his anal fixation, he's not going to save his marriage.
Because he cared more about the refiguring of his brownstone than he cared about his family. Yeah. And so there is an aspect. He had to destroy that house so his family could come there and then actually, okay, now let's build it up together again, and now we make it a homey home.
Yeah, and everything he's doing in that house is...
Do you buy that?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything he's doing in that house is destroying his ability to even work. He reaches into the model of the house, and his own trap catches him.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's Francis did a restoration of the Conversation recently, and I watched it again. And that incredible last shot after he's pried apart the whole house, right? And he's just living in rubble. Yeah. And the last shot is the bug that he didn't find, it's like a surveillance shot going on Gene Hackman sitting on the floor. He never found the bug. Is there a bug? I don't know. But that ending and that feeling of desolation, the feeling that this guy's, even if he glues all the shit back to the wall, he's never going to go back again, is so powerful. And in this movie, it's just like, this is everything.
But he seems really happy though when he sees the family. It's like
but I mean,
it's over. It's over. I know. No, we could not buy it, but I mean, he put the wooden stake in the vampire's heart and pounded in the hammer.
Right.
And so he's a different guy. Hey, everybody, great.
But it's a Pyrrhic victory, right? It's like the end of Last House on the Left, where you're covered in gore and you're like, I won. Isn't it that?
It's an internal victory, is what it is.
Well,
he's killed his own demons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, it was just a fucking rat, all right? He made it into a bigger thing, but he conquered his bigger thing.
I would have liked him to have gone more, put on a hockey mask and
catcher's mat.
And like, I would have liked to have seen that go even beyond what it did. Like back in, back when this movie came out in 83, I was fine with it. Like, that was enough for me. It was already over the top.
Look, I really liked the battle the first time I saw it because I really wanted him to kill that fucking rat.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has been leading to it. This time I thought it was fucking ridiculous. All right. It's like the rat wins every fucking contest he has. I mean, until he finally gets him, the rat's not even wounded. All right. And he destroys his house and he gets fucked up terribly. But I think that's also a key that it's in his mind.
He's fucking himself up.
That it's in his mind because he always seems like he's way more fucked up than he ends up being when the rat attacks him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's being attacked by a guard dog.
Right.
And then he seems to be okay.
Right. Right.
And we're back, and we're joined by the lovely Gala.
Hi, Quentin. Hi, Roger. Hi, Matthew. Of Unknown Origin. Dad, you have told me this plot so many times that when I started watching the movie, I was like, oh my God, it's the rat movie. I was like, it's Dad, and he's going to be taking apart the house. I actually really like your reading about like that the rat represents the wife, because there is kind of that issue, especially when the secretary finally comes into the home and she's like, oh, I finally get to come into your home. And she's all excited and she wants to be kissed by him.
Yeah.
It's very clear. Yeah. And then she hears the rat and she's like, what's that? And he kind of ignores it and he does kiss her, but then he's so obsessed with this rat in the wall that he forgets to go any further. And he takes her down to her cab and says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And it makes sense to me because the whole thing about him and his wife is that, his wife has this really rich dad. So rich that when he's like, I gotta get this job at my job. Like if they don't give me this file. We found it ourselves.
We built it ourselves. We're going to pay it off
Daddy
ourselves.
said he would pay the mortgage anytime you want. No!
And he's like, if I don't get this thing at work, we're going to be eating like rocks for dinner, basically. Right, and she's like, oh no, don't worry. Daddy will buy us groceries. He's so ticked off, like, oh, daddy this, daddy that. And even when the boss, I think at one point he even says like, well, good thing he's your dad and not like another man, because like I'd be really upset right now. But even his job wants his wife. When his boss invites him to dinner,
and be sure to bring that lovely wife of you. In fact, the only reason I'm inviting you is to bring Shannon Tweed with you.
That's literally what it is. And so his whole entire life is like, people have described this movie to be like a look at like fragile masculinity, like that he's trying so hard to prove himself that he is the one that can take care of his family. Okay, yeah, whatever. Like, okay. For me, I look at it and I see gentrification. That's the number one thing.
Because they've moved into the neighborhood, like somewhere.
The brownstone. Yeah. They've moved into a brownstone.
South Bronx or whatever the Cleat says.
Well,
he's got a hobo living outside.
And by the way, Cleat is not his superintendent. Cleat is the superintendent of the building across the street.
Oh, he's the neighbor.
And he says,
that's right, because he's always
he's always over there. And so I think he's kind of getting it in his head, like, I'm going to mess with you. Because you've moved into my neighborhood and you've taken over an entire building just yourself. This tile, is this real tile? Yeah. He comes in, he's like caressing it.
Yeah,
I think he's kind of trying to get into his head. And
like, wow, you made this place nicer than the whole neighborhood.
And what is the job that he's doing at work? He's merging banks together because his firm is closing banks in the poor neighborhoods.
Right.
And he's actually telling him, no, you have to keep
gentrification.
You have to keep those banks open.
These are the highest earning banks.
These are the highest earning banks because those poor people pay off their loans.
Yeah.
faster than the rich people do, faster than your friends do. You can't keep on doing that. And so it's like all this gentrification stuff. It's like,
and they're actually uncomfortable with him discovering this information, and they're kind of like,
keep it quiet. And he obviously, he's really into details. Like he notices the thread hanging off of his secretary's outfit and dismantling his own home. For me, it's like Candyman meets enemy territory. And like, that's kind of like where I see this movie with a rat. The big thing, though, for me, because I really enjoyed this, and like the rat, it kind of becomes a revenge-o-matic on the rat's part because he's like
he killed the babies.
Yeah. Like the rat's a mom, and like,
the rat turns into Orca.
It turns into Orca. It literally turns into Orca. But
my Orca will eat the jaws.
Luckily, you could fuck another rat and have about 10,000 more babies.
I know, but those little
or 2 million, according to Louis DiGiamo or whatever. In 3 years' time.
The big one, though, is also like the killing of the cat. Because he finds this cat on the street and he brings this cat inside and he's even telling the cat, like, oh, would you like to eat oysters? Would you like to eat
He's trying
caviar?
to gentrify the cat.
He's trying to gentrify the cat. And then he's like, I can't. I used to have a pussy cat like you, but I can't anymore because my wife.
She's allergic.
She sneezes. Yeah. She's allergic. And it's like, read that what you will. I just read it as he can't have a cat anymore because his wife's allergic.
Or he can't have pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who knows? Who knows? Get your mind out of the gutter, Quentin.
That's an interesting hypothesis, though.
Yes, that's not wrong.
My cat would kill that rat. You know my cat would kill that rat. My cat kills all sorts of things.
Hunter killer.
My cat's a hunter killer. But when I was little, I had a farm cat, and that cat used to bring me a mouse a night alive in my bed.
Would drop it in the bed.
In my bed. A mouse alive a night.
I would sometimes be looking for the cat, and I'd look under the bed and I would see the cat down there with like a tail coming out of its mouth and sucks it up like spaghetti.
Hey, that's worth having a cat. If I have a cat, that cat's working. He's got a job.
That cat, Dee Dee, would slice open a rat or a mouse and only eat the liver and then just leave it.
The rest for me.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, is like when I was like, he has to get a cat. And then he got the cat. I'm like, okay, this cat's finally going to like get the mouse. And then when he wakes up and the cat is dead on his fridge, like all bloody and stuff. I'm like, okay, this rat's a big deal.
Dripping blood into his milk.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing is accidental in a movie.
Yeah. Especially when you have.
Let me tell you where the film started losing it for me. The first half was just as fun, a black comedy, as I remember it being. And it was just as fun, a slow burn horror film. And Peter Weller's pretty good in the film. To me, Peter Weller's a weird guy, or a weird actor. I don't know if he's a weird guy or not. I'm just thinking,
oh, Lord.
He's a weird presence. Okay?
Well, Matthew, you at one point turned to me in the middle of the movie and you said, he looks like Christopher Walken. And I was like, and then suddenly he put on that gear, and it was like he's Christopher Walken, like in Dogs of War, like specifically.
In Dogs of War and Mouse Hunt. All right, including he has the little minor cap light and Mouse Hunt as well.
The headlamp.
He's not a wooden actor, but there's a bland, monotone quality to him that is part of his thing.
When it's intentional and it works for the character, it's great.
Well, it's really interesting because he's so kind of monotone in that David Duchovny kind of way and a little opaque that I'm surprised he would become successful. I find it hard to believe him winning 80 guys reading, for a male lead or a big role in a movie, and he's the one who wins. Well, who are these other guys if he's won? That doesn't mean he's bad. It's just, how does he win over 80 people or 150 people in an audition? He just is not that kind of guy. Yet he's had incredible luck to find roles
that are perfect for him.
That are kind of perfect for what that bland
who else could be who could be Buckaroo Banzai?
No, I think he's miscast in Buckaroo Banzai.
Really?
But yeah, I feel
like Buckaroo Banzai is the fuel for everything.
One thing where Peter Weller's cast as a rock star, no, I don't buy it. All right,
a scientist rock star.
Okay, but RoboCop, yeah, he's perfect.
Yeah, he's amazing.
RoboCop, he's perfect. He would have been a great Racer X. All right, anything that requires him to wear a mask, he's great. But he's wearing the mask of a young urban professional in this.
Well, he's very dry.
And he's really good as Henry Miller because he's kind of wearing the mask of the. I don't think that's an interesting movie, but he's the best part about it.
I think the New Age, He's amazing in that movie.
Yeah, I like
and I
The
think
New
that's a really underrated movie.
I've never seen
So is The Rapture. So is The Rapture.
The Rapture is also great. But he plays that, so, it's I feel like he's kind of like Costner with irony. He has that look, kind of a Marlboro Man look, but I feel like
in
Weller
real
has
life,
that
he's
little tickle of irony.
In real life, he's a total hippie.
Weller is?
Yeah, he's a total hippie. He talks about, that's why he did Naked Lunch, because he's like the biggest fan of wearing burros and reads all that stuff. And he was on, I remember him on the Arsenio Hall show, and he's like, he starts talking about Hendrix and All Along the Watchtower, and he realized he's just completely lost Arsenio.
Hilarious.
So I caught this movie on Amazon streaming because my tape didn't get here yet, but I actually got it for free because I figured out that I can get credits for not shipping things immediately. So I put it towards my movie.
Oh.
But I did buy a Warner Home Video re-release from 1991 because I prefer a slipcase to a clamshell. So I had to go for that for $14.99. And Dad, I have to let you know, this movie actually came out 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Not 20 or 30.
Whoa.
No, yeah, obviously. We've been working since then for 30 years, all right? I don't think I'd started Video Archives yet, when this came out.
Ars longa, vita brevis.
Okay, we do have to mention, like, the Roger scene. But I wanted to wait till Gala got in.
Are you talking about the Louis Del Grand?
No,
The history of rats.
No, the history of rats.
Oh,
scene.
yeah,
At dinner?
the
You
history
mean
of
at dinner?
rats.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, that's just, the thing is, I didn't even clock that because it's just every single day with my dad, like in the car, like even today in the car driving in.
Okay, so
What did I talk about today in the car?
Bioluminescence of like blood cells and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
people's blood is starting to glow.
It's a Roger scene in every single way it can be a Roger scene, okay? This is the kind of shit that happens when you try to have lunch with Roger. These are the crazy topics that he goes on with the ridiculous facts that he's like bombarding you with.
That's why
and crazy numbers.
That's why I identify
6
with his
million.
character. 6 million.
Since 40 years. It's almost like a parody of an Oliver Stone heavy historical exposition scene. In 1897, the first rat came from a Dutch ship. It was called the Santa Maria.
And I love the shot. I love how Cosmatos shoots that scene also because they're all at a long table and he basically has one single close-up isolating Peter Weller, who's going on his rant, who doesn't even realize that he's going on this rant.
But he's doing it very calmly.
Like I would, the way I would. And then he cuts to this profile of everyone else on the other side of the table, like all looking at him head next to each other, all of them wishing he would just shut up.
Well, wishing.
Look, that is the best scene of the movie. That scene is really great.
The one thing, when I first saw this movie, I remembered the ending being like a little bit more brief than the ending here. Like there was it cut a little sooner in my memory. Mm-hmm. In my memory, he's smashed up the house. He's like alone and he's walking through the devastation of his house and he comes upon that vase.
Oh, yeah.
And then he sees it and it's the one thing in the house that's not broken and he flips it over and it smashes. What a great ending. And then in my memory, we just backed up from there and that was it. And I think I heard the car showing up and honey, and that was it. This ended now. And it was like, wow, it's like an extra beat that I didn't realize where when he sees her, he's like, oh, I had a big party. He's like, oh, calm now all of a sudden. Yeah, no, it's all better.
I remember from the theatrical showing that like exactly the way it was. The wife showed up, the kids showed up.
Yeah, and they're walking in and we crane back.
And then even I got to tell you something.
By the way, I had a little party. And I think that's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I had a party.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing about Louis Del Grand, which
who did he play?
He was Cleet, the superintendent of apparently the place next door.
Across the street building. The guy who's like instilling fear into him.
The eyes, the groin.
Yeah. He's the guy because these are all, regulars of the producer and Canadian regulars, but he's the guy in Scanners, the first Scanner, who's giving the demonstration whose head blows up.
The bald guy whose head explodes, yeah.
Who is so amazing. I mean, I think I used to pretend to do that performance.
As soon as you brought it up, all right, and I realized, because I've actually, he's absolutely the most convincing New Yorker of all the Canadians. All right? All right. He could have his own show called The Super or something like that.
I would watch that.
And I would watch that show. And then you said that, and it just so happens that I'll never forget that bald guy's face in Scanners for as long as I live.
Yeah.
All right. That guy, he sells the idea of Scanners better than Cronenberg does.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
Right.
Without his struggle, his one-man performance, basically, in that moment, getting the idea across of what's happening is so riveting.
Well, once him and Patrick McGowan and Michael Ironside leave for an interminable amount of time, and it just becomes Stephen Lack. You're like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah, Stephen Lack doing my father, like his weird line readings.
To hear the rest of this episode, including discussions of 2 more movies and our award winners, sign up for the Video Archives Patreon. You'll get access to full Video Archives episodes, the Video Archives After Show, exclusive merch, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to subscribe today. The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.